Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Thank you. Welcome to Philadelphia and the 2025 APLU Annual Meeting. APLU would like to thank our host institutions, the Pennsylvania State University, Temple University, and the University of Pittsburgh. APLU would also like to thank our sponsors, our Emerald level sponsors, AGB Search, Clarivate, Florida Atlantic University, Florida International University, the Pennsylvania State University, Rutgers, Temple University, University of Arkansas, University of Central Florida, University of Pittsburgh, University of South Florida, University of Texas San Antonio, and Virginia Commonwealth University. Our gold sponsors, Microsoft and the Chronicle of Higher Education. Our silver sponsors, Academic Analytics, Digital Science, and Oregon State University. And our bronze sponsors, Academic Career and Executive Search, Bryant Group, Coursera, Elsevier, First Ignite, Into, NAC, McAllister & Quinn, Mountain Pass Solutions, NCFDD, QS, Scholarly, Steptoe & Johnson, and the Southeastern Universities Research Association. Please join us in thanking our hosts and sponsors. Please welcome John Fry, President of Temple University.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to Philadelphia. It's a real pleasure to come together in this city that gave birth to our country and constitutional republic and has played such a prominent role throughout our history. As we look ahead to the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, there's something deeply fitting about gathering here to talk about renewing what is arguably one of our nation's greatest democratic institutions after government itself, our public universities. 250 is a recurring number for us. More than 250 universities and systems are represented in this room tonight. Together, we're educating some 7 million students, and there are tens of millions of our alumni out there shaping the world every single day. Collectively, we are not just a powerful engine of social mobility, intellectual exploration, scientific discovery, and economic impact. We are a tremendous force for public good. The exciting opportunity before us is to harness and direct that collective talent and know-how towards solutions that will shape the future of our country for the better. I speak as someone who has spent his career in higher education and now has the privilege of leading Philadelphia's public university and public health system and overseeing our campuses in Rome, Tokyo, and Kyoto. Arriving at Temple at this stage in my career has been a great gift. Every day, I am reminded how vital our public mission is and how much our communities depend on us to do right by them. And make no mistake, we are stronger together. When we unite around issues that bear on the future of public higher education, and when we build coalitions across sectors with healthcare, business, government, and community partners, we become a powerful force for the public good. In moments of challenge and change throughout our history, America's public universities have been powerful engines of renewal, turning access into opportunity, knowledge into problem solving, discoveries into cures, and economic growth. The original land-grant universities established by the Morrill Act in the depths of the Civil War created the foundation for talent and research in agriculture and engineering for America to become a global economic power in the 20th century. Vaccines for polio, flu, hepatitis B, and Ebola were all developed at public universities. Federally funded research at public universities was responsible for thousands of innovations and discoveries we take for granted today, including the internet, MRI technology, and gene editing. Put simply, we have always answered the call to meet any challenge to serve the public good. And we can do it again. And this is our moment to do so, especially given the inhospitable environment at the federal level. We have the talent, we have the strength of our numbers, and we have many relationships and partnerships. So let me close by saying how proud Temple University is to host this year's APLU annual meeting. I want to thank APLU's leadership and staff for their vision and stewardship at a time when higher education and the country need strong, steady, and especially caring hands. We have a lot of ground to cover over the next few days. Let's use this time to listen, learn, connect, and recommit to the promise that has always defined public higher education: expanding opportunity, advancing discovery, and renewing the democratic spirit that began right here in Philadelphia. Welcome again, and thank you all for being here.
Please welcome Joan Verini Mundy, President of the University of Maine and Chair of the APLU Board of Directors.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 APLU annual meeting and to Philadelphia. It is an honor to be here as chair of the board and to welcome colleagues from across the country, from all 50 states, from the territories, from Mexico, from Canada, and beyond, to what is a critical meeting for us right now at this time. It's a time to come together and to reaffirm the critical importance of public higher education and the voice that we have. I would like to thank all of our colleagues at APLU for their leadership, for their commitment to the public good, for putting together what looks to be an outstanding program for this event, and to advise that we all use this time to come together, to learn from one another, to learn from the great diversity of perspectives that we bring to this meeting, and to leave this meeting emboldened to move forward and create public higher education's next iteration in a way that will serve our nation as we have been serving it for so many years. Thank you for being here and enjoy the conference.
Please welcome APLU President Wadid Cruzado.
Good evening, everybody. Turns out I have the wrong binder with me. But there's not a problem. Let me just go ahead and welcome all of you to APLU. It is truly the honor of my life to lead this wonderful institution that means so much for America. First of all, I would like to thank our hosting institutions, the wonderful public universities of the state of Pennsylvania. President John Fry, President Ben DiPuti, Chancellor Joan Gable, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You and your teams have been absolutely wonderful in helping us planning this event, and I think that you deserve a round of applause. I am truly overcome with emotion today as I think about the wonderful opportunities that we have to celebrate. First of all, we want to celebrate the 20th anniversary of our Coalition for Urban Institutions. On their 20th anniversary, 15 years of those have been associated with APLU, and I think they deserve a round of applause. Also, our wonderful 1890 Council is celebrating 135th anniversary since the second Moral Land Grant Act, and I also think that we need to congratulate them on this important milestone. So, since last July, I have been honored with the opportunity to serve APLU. And those of you who know me know I love APLU. I have loved APLU since I first attended the first meeting back in 2003, and I was serving as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at New Mexico State University. And many other meetings while I serve as president of Montana State University for 15 and a half years. I loved APLU when I chaired the Council for International Initiatives, and at that moment I was graced with this gavel that they gave me and that I still keep and that I mean to use. I loved APLU when I served as chair of the board. And so I just need to say thank you for this opportunity to serve the oldest university association in the nation. And with that, I'm going to say welcome to the 2025 annual meeting. The theme of this year's annual meeting is Rising to the Moment. These are difficult times for higher education, and they are different when compared with other trying periods in the past. Today we face an abruptly shifting federal and state funding and policy environment, a rapidly changing technological landscape, and among segments of society there is an increased skepticism about the value and purpose of higher education. Though we have faced many challenges at times before, now the sheer speed, scale, scope, and the simultaneity of these trials are unprecedented. And yet, consistent with our proud history, public and land-grant universities are rising to the moment to thrive in the face of present and future obstacles. In fact, I am convinced that through our uncompromising emphasis on education, research, extension, and engagement, our brand of universities offer the best and most eloquent rejoinder to the criticisms and attacks against higher education. Just think about what our universities accomplish every day. Public and land-grant universities are indispensable to the welfare of the nation and stability in the world. To those who ask, what is a college degree good for? I say, look no further than the potable water you drank with confidence just a minute ago, or the plate of food you enjoyed last night, the technology you are holding in your hands, or the medications and the health care that have given your family members enhanced quality of life. In essence, many of the everyday services, items, and amenities we take for granted in our lives can be traced back to the research, the teaching, and the extension work that happens in our universities. Why am I so passionate about APLU's mission? Like for many of you, public research universities in general, and land-grant institutions in particular, are written into my life story. I was born and raised in the coastal city of Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, home to the land-grant, always happens, there's always one out there. Home to the island's land-grant university, surrounded by palm and mango trees. I grew up in a multi-generational house shared by my 3 younger siblings, my parents, 2 aunts, and my maternal grandmother. None of the adults in my home had been afforded an opportunity to go to college. Not for lack of intelligence or grit, but they instinctively knew the value of higher education. And they were determined that we children had the tools to aspire to an even more prosperous and happier life than theirs. My story is hardly unique. In fact, this room is full of very similar and even more dramatic and inspirational testimonies. But none of them would have been possible without our brand of universities. The promise of higher education to better ourselves, our communities, and our country endures as brightly today as it did in 1862 when Congress passed and President Lincoln signed the first Morrill Act, the legislation that led to the establishment of one public university in each state and territory of a still very young nation. In the midst of one of the darkest moments in our nation's history, the Civil War, we as a nation were able to envision a better and brighter future based on one premise and one promise: that a better educated society would protect and advance our country and the world. This impulse gave birth to a new kind of colleges and universities that, for the first time ever in the history of humankind, would focus on educating the sons and daughters of the working families of the industrial classes, the men and women of toil, who not even in their wildest dreams would have been able to imagine the potential that a college degree would unleash in their lives. That higher education would be enacted by, for, and in the people's interest was an inspired decision in 1862, furthered and expanded in 1890 and in 1994. It is part of the legacy that brought us to this moment, and I think it is worth our sleepless nights. Affirming the value and the purpose of public higher education remains a wise path for us to follow, and the main reason why, obstacles notwithstanding, we're called to rise to the moment. Yes, the work ahead of us is monumental, but at APLU we feel honored to serve the finest network of institutions of higher education in the world, with each of our universities accomplishing extraordinary things every day. We can rest assured that the public and land-grant university community is an unstoppable force for good. We at APLU are resolute in continuing to provide our member institutions with the very best in shared advocacy, collective problem solving, and meaningful networking opportunities to continue to face whatever challenges come our way with a vibrant and resilient sense of community and purpose. Over these 3 next days together, we will forge ahead, making progress for the sake of our students, faculty, staff, families, and the communities we serve. You, our valued members, will have more than 100 sessions to choose from to brainstorm together, learn from each other, draw on relationships made through APLU, and go back home, hopefully exhausted, and ready to rise to the moment. Because at the end of the day, as you will see in the following video, what we do matters. Thank you for joining us. The APLU meeting is now open.
The number one reason I love being a public and land-grant university leader is that you get to see lives of students and their families and communities transform every day. We have about 22,000 first-generation college students on our campus any given year. And what better reason could you have?
What we do really matters, and it makes a difference in people's lives, and it's honorable, and it's important, and we will continue doing it.
We are Philadelphia's public university. We are Philadelphia's public health system. We are one of the largest employers in the city of Philadelphia, and we are one of the most important anchor institutions in the city and in the region and in the state. And when you think about how many people we educate, the research we do, the impact we make, that is what I'm most proud of.
Oh, I love being a university leader because of our students. We transform their lives, and they in turn transform communities.
I think my favorite moments come when a student who wasn't sure about their fork in the road makes their choice, it works out, they land when they were hoping to land, and you realize that the university was what helped to get them there.
A very successful alum recently told me that they went to 2 name-brand Ivy League institutions and then came here to earn another degree, but shared with me that what they learned here had the most significant impact on their business career and success. And this person has made a generous gift to student scholarships at IU Indianapolis.
One of my mentees was picked recently by the Sacramento Observer newspaper for its 30 Under 30 Awards, honoring emerging leaders. This recognition affirms the calling we share, to serve, to edify, to help people move from doubt to destiny, and most importantly, to lead from the heart.
There's a lot to be proud of at the University of Nevada. The one I'm most proud of is our Collegiate Academy program. It's having an incredible impact on the families of Nevada. This dual credit program offers more than 7,000 seniors at more than 40 Nevada high schools the opportunity to earn college credit at a discounted cost in their own high school classrooms. It's a program that is telling the families of Nevada, yes, college is possible, and our university is going to help you make it happen.
I take great pride in the fact that the University of Maryland is the first and only do-good campus in the country. We try to inspire our students, faculty, and staff to go out in the community and work on small, medium, and large-scale projects to help communities be better off.
2 coolest things. One is Thon, the largest student-run philanthropy in the world. The other thing that I'm very proud of is our Ag Progress Days. We have over 40,000 visitors, farmers, producers, processors, everybody that's involved in putting food on our tables. So those are 2 things I'm very proud of.
As the state's flagship and learner-centered R1 university, we are reaching new horizons in research, innovation, and an excellent student experience. We're very, very happy that so many are enrolled in Research Learning Experience courses, RLEs. They are taking our students from the Schoodic Peninsula to here in Orono to Mount Washington. Black Bears inquire from day one as they come to our university.
There are 2 programs I'm really proud of. First of all, 5 years ago, we stood up a Division of Student Success, which has made our retention rates go through the ceiling. Really proud of that. And number 2, the Institute for American Civics is an institute funded by the state legislature, bipartisan agreement, funded to do 2 things: teach and learn about civics, and number 2, learn to respectfully disagree with one another. Our country needs more of that.
There's really no program or initiative that a president or a chancellor creates on their own, but our team created the Pitt Finish Line Grants. And these grants help students who are within the last 2 semesters before graduation, who are experiencing financial crisis, receive the support they need so that they can get to the finish line and graduate.
I'm proud of our Spartan bus tour. This is an idea that I brought from my work at UNC. We bring a bus or 2 of faculty members to communities across the state to learn more about the work that we're doing and where our students live and come from, and showcase the amazing impact that we have across the state of Michigan.
What gives me the most hope? Students and faculty, our heartbeat.
Penn Staters impacting the world.
That's easy. Our bright and talented students.
Students, faculty, ideas, progress, and of course, technology.
A classroom with curious students.
Students.
Students at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, give me hope.
We are
Spartans will.
Go Ags.
Go Jags!
Go Terps!
Go Vols!
Hail the Pitt.
Real success is temple made.
Go Pack.
Soar above and beyond.
Aloha! Go Bows!
Please welcome our moderator, Waded Cruzado, and our panelists, Michael Drake and Kent Fox.
Welcome, Kent. Welcome, Michael. Needless to say, these two individuals need no introduction. They have led some of our most extraordinary institutions in America. To my left, the Ohio State University and the University of California system. To my right, the University of Florida. We're very, very happy. We wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity today to start, first of all, to start our meeting with a positive note. Yes, it's easy for us to be overwhelmed and to think about some of the challenges that colleges and universities are navigating these days. But first, we wanted to share a video about what keeps our university presidents excited. What do they do, what they do? And then we wanted to invite you, as experienced university presidents recently retired, to share some of your advice and some of your wisdom. So first of all, as you watch that video, I hope that you had an opportunity to reflect and to remember. And my first question is, if you can share with us, what used to bring you a lot of joy serving as president in your institutions? Michael?
Well, I think really everybody in this room and all the work that we were able to do for so many years, really the breadth of the work. It's wonderful working with students, wonderful working with our faculty colleagues, the concept of new ideas and new knowledge being created. We had academic medical centers, the privilege of being able to work with patients to bring new babies in the world to save the lives of people who were traumatized or suffering. So really the entire enterprise was a great joy and blessing to be involved in. And I think all day, every day, we had problems, but we also all day, every day had inspiration.
Thank you, Michael.
I think my answer as president would be different than in previous leadership roles I had as a provost or dean or as a school head. As president, it was something that we heard in the video, and that was engaging with students. That engagement as a president is just so invigorating. And one of the unique attributes about being a chancellor or a president is indeed the visibility. Every student on campus knows how to spell your last name and pronounce it. And that just gives you the opportunity to engage and have fun with them, their parents, and in just a unique way. And I think it would have been different, though, as a provost. I might have spoken about other things, but with students.
That's great. Well, so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better, let's go a little bit deeper into your career. And can you please share how you first became a university president? How long did you serve? And connecting this to some previous sessions that we were having today, was it always a career goal for you to become a university president, or did it just happen by accident? So 3 questions bundled into one.
I'll start.
Sure.
So my original plans were actually to be a minister or a pastor of a church. So I went off to seminary, divinity school, graduate school for 3 years, and did that, but then decided, no, I wanted to work at a university. So for me, I felt as a faculty member that I wasn't going to waste 8 years of grad school in being a university administrator. I was going to be a faculty member. So I had no aspirations for most of my career up to the presidency of taking the next step in a university leadership position. And it was usually through a process of my colleagues twisting my arm, telling me I should be a candidate for a position, and then getting rejected for that position because I didn't want the job, or at least was a reluctant candidate, that caused me to realize, actually, I might enjoy that job, maybe I'd be good at it, and I'd show them. They rejected me, I'll go get a job somewhere else. So that happened several times in my career. So students love hearing about the fact that I really had, and parents, didn't have a career plan. Although I'm envious of those of you and others that do know exactly what you're going to be doing in the future.
Mike.
Oh gosh, mine was similar, different. I'm a medical doctor, so my goal when I went to school was to be a medical doctor, and that was great. As a medical student, I met faculty members who said, gee, you could see patients and do research, but also be, you could see some patients and do research, so be on a faculty of a medical school, which is something I'd never considered, but it seemed like a good idea, and I stayed on the faculty of the medical school, and that was always my aspiration. I was on a committee or two, and then I became chair of a committee or two, and you sort of find yourself flowing up. But I didn't have an aspiration to be an administrative leader at any point, honestly. So I can say that now. It's a little awkward, though, for me to say, because it was difficult when I said that when I was in those positions. And it sounded almost arrogant to say that I didn't ever apply for one of them. I rejected them multiple times because I really didn't want to do it, and only kind of came to it because it seemed like the right thing to do at the end of the day. Let me put an asterisk, though, about the accidental part of it. So I was president of my high school. So from the time I was a teenager, I was used to standing in back of podiums and speaking, so it never was a big challenge to take that extra step, but it also never was a career aspiration.
Mm-hmm. And so, how long did you serve in Ohio State and then University of California?
Well, and Go Eaters, I was chancellor at UC Irvine as well, so for those jobs together was 20 years.
Yeah, so I'm a newcomer at 9 years, 15 years, well dead. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you the question. Did you always aspire to be a university president?
No, I was sharing that same information. All I wanted to do, I love to read books. No one in my family had gone to college, and so I wonder what would that career be that would afford me an opportunity to read books and then to tell everybody about the books that I had read. And that would have been to be a college faculty member. So I thought that I was going to be a college faculty member forever. And then one thing led to the next, and I was fortunate enough to serve University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez as dean, then from there at New Mexico State University. And then this was what happened. So I arrived in 2003 at New Mexico State University as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and a few years later we had a new president, and I applied for the provost position, and when he interviewed me, he said, how long are you going to be at New Mexico State? And honestly, I said, forever. I didn't have that mindset of moving from one place to another. So he said, well, I'm going to stay here for 5 years. I need you for 5 years. And I said, deal, let's do it. And 8 months later, he called me and he said he was leaving New Mexico State. And so I said, what happened? What happened to the 5 years? And he said, well, the board wants to have a conversation with you. And so the board called me and I said, listen, I have only been 8 years in this job and I'm not ready. That's exactly what I said. And they appointed someone else, a retired vice president, and a week before that person was going to start, he fell ill. And so the Board of Regents called me, and I made the mistake of answering the phone by saying, good morning, Bob, how can I help you? And so he said, Jim is not coming, we need you up to step up to the plate. And in that unceremonious fashion, I became president. So, but
I don't think we're good examples for that.
But
No, but let me just say, I think the example, Kent, is that for all of us and for so many people I've talked to, so many in the audience, you are ready. You're in a position doing your best, and someone comes to you and says, here's an opportunity. We think this will be a good opportunity for you, and you can see that and move forward. I think that's a common pathway, which I think is an appropriate thing.
It is. I'm also impressed, though, with those that are a little more intentional than I was and take leadership courses and internships and other things of that nature. So they're all valid paths.
But your case is different, Kent, because you had already retired, been out, and then you decided to come back. Tell us about that decision.
It was the job I had before, so it was a little different in serving as interim in a position that you had before, and which I served as interim for a year after serving as 8 years as president, and there was a 1.5 year gap where I was teaching as a transition to retirement, teaching freshman introduction to electrical engineering as a transition after a year or two to retirement. But then because the president stepping down, they needed someone that, in this case, had the job, and so came back for a year. But I'm glad to do it.
Wouldn't you say that even in the last few years, the role of the presidency has changed a lot? And can you think about what skills or even mindsets do you think are necessary now for university presidents and for presidential communities to be successful?
I think, well, I mean, there's a change, but things are also, there's lots of similarities to the past, right? That if I've had the privilege of knowing many of my predecessors, and one of them spoke at his memorial service a couple of years ago, and I was reviewing the history of when he stepped down from the position, and David Gardner was the name of the person, and when you step down, there were articles in the paper saying, well, you're stepping down because of X, Y, Z that happened last week. And he said, no, it's not because of something that happened last week, because something happens every day. And I'm stepping down because it's the right time for me to move on. I think that these jobs are challenging from the first morning of the first day. And there are a variety of new challenges, but you're tested to the maximum of your ability pretty much every day, so you're pretty much floored doing your best. And I think that it's important to have, and you don't know, there's no cookbook or way to look up what to do. There's this line that people say is, gosh, it's the first time you've ever seen a problem quite like this, but often it's the first time anybody's seen a problem quite like this, and it just takes being ready to bring all that you brought to the position, to have your eyes and heart and mind and open to doing your best day by day, step by step, decision by decision, moving along. And I think it's forever going to be like that.
I would agree. I would suggest that the fundamental attributes you should have as a leader are probably the same as they were 100 years ago. But how you carry out your job is obviously different in everything that we do, because of technology and everything else that's in our lives. And urgency and the scale of time is certainly different. So the fundamentals, though, about being a compassionate leader, a leader that listens, all those fundamental attributes that we could list are the same, I believe, as they were in the past. And it's the same with our institutions. That's one of the wonderful things of our jobs. We know that no matter what we do, that institution is going to be around 100 years from now. And there'll be students that are getting educated and discoveries being made and lives changed. So that gives us, I think, some assurance in our jobs that there's a persistence to the institution that we're a part of.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing about the skills that you two have mentioned is you don't have to wait to be a president to start exhibiting those. Right? You can start exhibiting that as a department head,
all of them,
as a faculty member in the classroom, right? As a provost, a dean, a vice president. These are all very handy, and you can start practicing them, right, a little bit at a time. So if we were in a time machine, and this is the proverbial question, and if you could go back in time, and the young Kent and the young Michael knew that this is what life had in store for them, what advice would have you given to yourself, and would you have prepared yourself differently for the job?
So I think, again, this advice is more relevant to me when I started out early in university leadership, which was I made a move from a faculty member position at the University of Illinois to Purdue, where I was head of their School of Electrical Engineering, and then later became a dean elsewhere and a provost, and then at the University of Florida. And I've gotten better, in other words, as in terms of following this advice. And it's very simply that not to carry too much, not to worry too much about the future and the challenges of the organization that I'm leading. I remember being at Purdue and walking across one of their quads, and the mechanical engineering head was coming the other direction. He passed, and I have a tendency, if I'm not purposeful about not doing this, and that is to frown as I'm thinking about a problem, and to kind of even as I'm walking. And so this, my friend Frank Incaparas said, "Kent, cheer up, it can't be that bad." There was nothing wrong, I was just festering and worrying about a problem. So my advice to myself would be, find more purposeful joy in those jobs. Understand that you're not carrying the weight of the entire institution or organization or school on your shoulders. It's going to persist, it's going to be successful, and indeed find the joy in the job.
Michael.
You know, I think that for everybody here, our work matters. The things that we do every day make a difference. I think that for everybody here, I'd say that you matter in the work that you do. Your work matters to other people. You make a difference in people's lives. It's a great privilege to be engaged in the world in a way that makes a difference. What more could we aspire to? So we have this great privilege of being able to do that. And the advice that I was asked by a freshman student from my class. I taught undergraduates these last 15 years or so, and I was asked by a freshman student, what advice would you give to your 19-year-old self? And the advice that I would have given to my 19-year-old self, I give to my 75-year-old self, it would just to keep your eyes and ears and mind and heart open to the great privilege that we have in our lives, and to be present and authentic in everything you do every day, all the time. And I would have said that to myself when I was 19, and I'll say that to myself tomorrow.
Yeah, that's excellent. I was also thinking, you know, at a more practical level, the beauty of the job is that you learn to do new things, and you learn new things about yourself. I was reminiscing. I was more on the introvert side, if you can believe that, and I dreaded some public functions, right? Because there were a lot of people, and what do you do? And I remember when I was at New Mexico State, once I went to the ladies' room very early before an event, and I just looked at myself and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go out, you're going to greet people, you're going to shake their hands, and you're going to enjoy the evening. And then a good mentor who served as former president of the state of New Mexico, he gave me the best possible advice, and he said, learn to work a room, and don't try just to go from fluttering from one end to a next. Just stand in the front of the room, and you can do this if you are a dean or a provost. Stand in the front of the room and greet everybody. Normally, they will have their name tags, and then you can add their names. Good morning, good evening, Joe. Good evening, Mary. And that night, when people go back to their home, they will say, today I met the president. Today I met the provost. And that starts weaving a sense of community that I thought was very important. And you learn to get out of your shell too. On that topic, one of the most interesting and difficult things of this job is that we work with different constituencies, right? You have faculty, faculty senates, you have students, you have staff, you have alumni, donors, benefactors, friends, neighbors, legislators, elected officials. So how did you balance all of that in a single day or throughout the year? And did you enjoy interacting with some of those constituencies more than with others?
And which ones? Yeah, I would say that there are two parts to many leadership positions, but particularly being a president, that are the most challenging. One is your calendar, just how it fills up all day and through the weekends. But secondly, more importantly, the number of constituents, as you have just described, to whom you need to pay attention. And that means communication, listening to them. It's just absolutely critical that you be intentional about that. I believe the way I thought about the job is that there are three parts to the position. One is communicating, which includes listening. The other part is working to bring resources to the institution. And then the third is working to support your other leaders, your direct reports and others. And the communication part is where all those constituents fit in. And there are at a university probably hundreds, at least dozens of those constituents. They're all really important, and even more so at public universities than in private universities that can influence the future of your institution. So for me, it meant just being very intentional about knowing what all those constituents are, and they can be a singular person, the chair of your board, to special student groups, and then being intentional about, I'm going to communicate with them. It may be going to an event, it may be calling the person once a week, like your board chair, whatever it is, but you got to communicate. And communicating means developing a relationship of some type, being accessible. It's not sending memos or emails.
I used to say that there are three things I needed to do every day as university president: communicate, communicate, communicate. Michael.
I'd agree with all three, except the second one. No, I think that's, I don't know about the second one. But I think that's true. We do have a varied constituency. Part of the excitement of the work that we all do is that we're involved with different people in different ways. But again, each of those interactions, each of those constituencies matter. The work that we get to do with each of them makes a difference. I'll say what I was thinking about when you were speaking. Is I began my career as a medical doctor, and when a patient came before you, I was in the operating room a lot. A patient came before you, you didn't think about did you like the person or did you feel like being there or whatever else. You needed to focus on doing the best you could in that moment for the problem that was before you. 100%. You couldn't be pretty darn good at it. You had to do your best. And I sort of carried that through the meetings I had. People, again, in the presidential roles, people are meeting with you. It might be once a year, it might be once a quarter, it might be once in their lifetime. You need to kind of make it that it's a good meeting and you're fully leaned in and present when you did it. And so I always tried to be there and be engaged and do a good job with it. And I hope that and then I would say something that maybe I liked a bit. I liked working with people who I didn't agree with so much, who were a little further away from my point of view. That was sort of an interesting thing. It was wonderful to get hugs and to agree with people with what you're dealing with. But it was great to meet somebody who was not quite there and see if you could forge a pathway forward. So I like that part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's change topics a little bit and let's talk about crisis management. I remember when I arrived as dean, I was the first dean in 37 years. So my predecessor had served for 13 years, the person before him for 24 years. And yet, when I met with him his first words were, Waded, I have spent 13 years here, and I don't know what I have accomplished because it felt like every day I was putting out fires. And so the question is, how do you keep yourself and your teams grounded? How don't you get lost in the day-to-day shuffle or putting out fires so that then you can look back and say, we have accomplished something together?
Certainly that balance of the urgent, the crisis. It may not be a full-blown crisis, but things that are urgent every day that have to get done. And as has been described by some as the tyranny of the urgent can really rob you from accomplishing what's important, or even rob you of your focus of what you need to accomplish, both as an institution as well as a leadership team. So my experiences, and each of us is different, is in my different leadership roles, is those roles have been fairly not autonomous, but maybe powerful. I was given a lot of authority as a department chair, and then as a dean, and then as a provost. So I've, as a president, have operated in that way as well, and have really counted on and relied on those leaders to have goals that we discuss, to have measurable outcomes, and then they're held accountable to those. But I'm not really leading those initiatives, but I get to take credit for it. Because usually, often, they're really, really successful. The best ideas, when I've been the president, have come out of other people's ideas, just consistently. So focusing and reminding ourselves, which we have to do, as well as your team, about why we're here, the joy of the job, the goals that we have for the next year, maybe quarter, maybe before the next trustee meeting, and then working to accomplishing those is something you have to do, because in our jobs, every day there is some crisis of some type that will rob you of your time and your focus.
Well, I agree. I mean, in leadership positions, you're out front, and sort of by definition, there's no pathway necessarily to follow. You're kind of creating a pathway and doing that. And years ago, I was in a course on leadership, and the person speaking said that what he believed was really important was values-based leadership. And by values, he meant knowing what mattered to you and why, and sort of having a set of values that you focused on intentionally yourself. And then when you came to a decision saying, gosh, what am I supposed to be doing? You'd kind of be able to guide yourself by thinking, what are my values? What matters to me? Why? What would I do in that circumstance? And try to make those decisions moving forward. So I like the idea of values-based leadership and kind of trying to make sure to be clear of that. And then as you're clear on your values and you think broadly about the institution, again, as Kent was saying, you can kind of look beyond the day or the week or the month to where do you want the enterprise to be? What would be, in a couple of our places, we had strategic plans that we really worked on to say, what do we want to be like in 2 or 5 or even 10 years? And if that's the case, then what should we be doing now? And then kind of put together a plan that was our long-term direction, our long-term pathway, even while we were taking care of the skirmishes or issues of the moment, and tried to measure ourselves and moving forward to achieve those things.
Yeah, it reminds me of, during the pandemic, right? At the beginning, we were submerged in all these tiny little details about, do we cancel classes? Do we move to online? What about face masks? And what about vaccines? And then there was a moment in which we all realized as a team, right, that we still had a university to run. We still had research to conduct. We had to educate students, right, rather than just being lost in the minutiae, which can be all-consuming. So the question is, do you recognize in yourself some coping mechanisms for when you're dealing with crisis? Are there some internal skills that you have developed in order to provide that sense of perspective to your teams and to the community at large while you're managing a crisis?
Well, personal health, well-being health is really important. And I think all of us have ways that we maintain that, and it's easy to lose track of that, and particularly in the midst of a crisis or a challenge that may endure over a long period, like COVID. But there are many others that we all face. So for me, and each of these are personal. You know, it's family, it's my personal faith. So prayer, going to church, and also I have a farm. So manual labor is a good way for me to get out my frustrations. I'm not sure it helps the team, but it helps me.
I was going to say screaming, swearing, drinking excessively. These would be, well, wait, I'm sorry. These would be things you should not do. That's what I was going to say. You didn't let me finish my sentence, so I would avoid those things. And that I'd agree with, I can't truly and more seriously, taking care of yourself is really important. And I think that's having a routine of making sure that you do. I'm a great fan of physical activity and trying to do those kinds of things. I think that's critically important. And again, so many of us here would say this, particularly in jobs of leadership, the more leadership you have, the lonelier the job gets. And really what's there as it gets lonely is your family and the things that are really important to you on a daily basis. And so making sure that you support your family and that your family nurtures you, I think that's a critical thing.
So you guys, men do talk about life and work balance then? Yeah, that's a question.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
But the answer, right, I mean, the true answer is it's really awful for work-life balance. I mean, these jobs are awful for work-life balance. And so you can't, and so the biggest cost of the job is the cost to your family.
Correct.
And that's a painful thing to experience all the time and to know has been the case. And so that's something you have to, that's why it becomes a kind of a family decision to do the jobs. And it's a cost every day to be able to do the jobs because of that.
That's my advice. If you're thinking about a university presidency because of its work-life balance, surrender. Right. It's not a good path. So on a lighter topic, let's talk about college athletics. And you know, it's the portal, name, image, and likeness, more donors, the rivalries, the changes in conferences. What's your take on collegiate athletics nowadays, and how did you manage the stresses that come associated with that wonderful part of the university life?
Do you want to start, Michael?
Okay,
I'll start. Yep. Both of us have served at institutions with fairly intense football teams on a good year, and other athletics. I'll take the question just in a slightly different direction, but first mentioning, I think in my, let's say, 9 years as a university president, the one thing that changed the most, one area of the university was athletics, nationally as well as at the University of Florida, from everything, from budget, resources, everything. But I'll change the question a little bit and just say there's some responsibility we have as academic leaders, all of us here, no matter what role we have. I believe it's really, I mean, we can talk about, you know, whether athletes are really employees now or not, but I really believe we as academic leaders need to keep the student and the student athlete, and that's our role. Your athletic director probably is not going to push that, but whatever way we engage with athletics, whether it's in an official role or unofficial as a faculty member or a counselor, advisor, keeping that student piece of it, because since it's associated with the university, is really important. Secondly, I would say we have a role in mitigating some of the new, more intense challenges that our student body faces now. There is wagering, gambling, which didn't occur, which is not a part of all of this, at least legally. 10 years ago, it's now very legal to wager, and depending on what the NCAA does, it may even be allowed for athletes to be wagering on other events. So I just think that's my view, terrible. Secondly, the alcohol that's associated with athletic events, which is associated with many of the challenges our students face, that is growing. I know in the Southeastern Conference, with the sale of alcohol is much more pervasive than it was 10 years ago. So we have a role to play in mitigating the negative effects of that. And then obviously there's the whole sort of budget piece of it, and that is to just make sure that athletics doesn't erode because of its insatiable need for resources, to make sure it doesn't erode the academic excellence of our institutions. Those are roles that we have to play. They're not easy roles, but they're important, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, very well said, and a big topic. This, I had 2 stints on the NC2A board. When I was at UC Irvine, I was on the board for years, and we had national championships there in Olympic sports. And then when I was president at The Ohio State University, I was chair of the board of the NC2A, and we had lots of intense athletics there. Back in California, actually, I'm a friend of a woman who's now out of office, but Senator Nancy Skinner, who was from my community, and I know her well, and she wrote the bill that was signed that created the NIL pathway forward. I was at the NC2A when we worked on modernizing the transfer portal rules to where they are now, and I think these are challenging things. So managing student athletics today is an extremely challenging part of our jobs. I emphasize and associate myself very much with what Kent said about the student part, the student athlete. We're very well aware of the 500,000 student athletes, a tiny fraction of whom will have a career in athletics, and that supporting the student part of all of the rest of them is critically important. And for those who have athletic careers, I think that the student part is important. So I think that's just really a big part of our work, is to try to maintain that balance as we move forward.
When we think about challenges now and into the near future, what are your thoughts about artificial intelligence and its role in higher education? You were completing your tenures with the emergence of AI. What implications does it have for higher education in general, for research, for education, for extension and engagement?
I mean, I'll go first. And I say, there's AI, artificial intelligence. I, for years, have thought of it as augmented intelligence rather than artificial. Something that's there to help us be better rather than to take over for us. I think that the human interface is critically important and will continue to be critically important in bringing our best work forward. But we have to be engaged as people in looking at the policies and the guidelines and things that allow these new instruments to be used. And again, another place for us to be very, very intentional in our communities and our institutions, and leaning forward to make sure that the way that these new tools, the way that maybe tools, maybe new partners even, can be employed, they're done ethically and appropriately, but I think that's going to require daily interaction from us.
Yeah, it was, I mentioned that I went back to teach 2 years ago, and freshman, and saw it being deployed in my class, for my first experience with ChatGPT and all of the associated opportunities for automatic coding and essay writing, et cetera. But it's certainly here to stay. Number 2, it's going to get better. It's really important. The world they're going to live in, the corporate world, business world, and academic world is going to use AI in ways that are not even present today. So I think we have a number of responsibilities. One, incorporating it in appropriate ways in our curriculum across our institutions, no matter what area it is. It's not just associated, obviously, with computer science anymore. Secondly, and I know all of our colleges and universities are doing this, and that is figuring out when it should be allowed and not allowed, as I experienced when I was teaching, and how to manage that. And then thirdly, just the research piece of this, which is obvious as well, the ethics of it and how to move forward. But we as universities will indeed, this is a case where in some sense, industry has moved quicker than we have in many areas, but we'll certainly catch up and be the leaders again as institutions.
One of the roles that have grown for presidencies is, it's fundraising and the interaction with donors. Was there a special story that you would like to share with us about a special donor, a special gift? Did you enjoy that part of the job? Why is philanthropy important for public higher education?
I mean, I'll start. I'll say, when I first began the job, this is now Chancellor at Irvine, I'd had close to zero experience with fundraising. I had a patient or two who'd made a gift that was very touching, like overwhelmingly touching, but I hadn't done it as a part of my job. And when I was brought into my position, I had an hour-long meeting with my predecessor, who I'd known for years, and I didn't know anything about being a chancellor. I hadn't been thinking about it, as I mentioned. And in our hour-long meeting, 45 minutes was spent talking about a particular donor. And so the rest, you'll be fine. But here, and we're talking about fundraising and the donor. And he said something I didn't believe, interestingly. He said, I didn't act like I didn't believe it. I was very polite, but I didn't believe him when he said it. He said, we have a great foundation. The members of the foundation board are going to become your best friends. They're wonderful people. And I said, sure. But it turned out that these were people who were very interested in our mission, willing to be really devoted to helping us move it forward, who cared about our success and what we could do by working together. And some of them are among our best friends today. And we have dinner with one on Wednesday night, who I met 20 years ago. And so I really found that through the process of sharing with people who were interested in doing something good, the quality of the work that we were doing and the impact you could have, and then partnering with them on doing that was actually quite joyful. And maybe one little thing I'll say that was, in Ohio particularly, there's a thing we would do every year. We would have if you were $1 million donor, there was a club you were in, and you got invited to come on to the field during a night game during one of the timeouts and be introduced and applauded. And what I remember when I was there doing it the first time with this group of people, then most of whom by that you would know, is how happy they were at both the thrill of being introduced in front of all the people in the study, and that's great. The thrill of being able to do something that was so good and made a difference. And honestly, they appreciated their special privilege of being able to do something like that in their lives. And so there was really great joy in that group. And so they were a good group to work with. That was surprising to me, but it turned out to really be a really great group of people to work with. Sorry for.
It's really a common story that academics that move into a leadership position where they do fundraising discover that they really enjoy it. It's part of the fun part of the job. You can accomplish goals that you couldn't with other resources. These are wonderful people. They become good friends often, and they want to do good. I would say that the next few years is an interesting time because the amount of wealth that has been accumulated by those that have extraordinary wealth already is stunning over the past few years. I know that because I see many of you in the state of Florida talking to the billionaires that are down there. But that is opportunities for philanthropy. But yet, the message of what we do sometimes in the press has not been as clear in the past few years as it has been. So there's that huge opportunity where those donors, potential donors now that have extraordinary wealth, just it's stunning, that's been accumulated in just the last few years, will, I believe, be an opportunity to invest in higher ed. But we've just got to be not shy about it. We've got to be clear in our message of how we're changing lives and society and the good we're doing for our nation. And I'm really optimistic about the opportunities for leaders that are now in place for development, advancement, fundraising. Yeah.
Could I agree with Kent very much on that? That this new kind of whatever word I'd use, but incredible wealth that's been developed by people who were incredibly wealthy when they started. So it's kind of mind-boggling, and helping them to advance that or to make something good come from that is part of how this works. I had a mentor years ago. I've quoted this many times, 1,000 times over my life, but this is a mentor who said to me once that the difference between A and A+ is huge. And he meant this in lots of ways, and I think it's really true in lots of ways. Pretty darn good and the best you could possibly be. There's a distance between A and A+, and that distance is huge. And one of the places at our institutions that we help make that leap from A to A+ is with philanthropy that is really focused on a place where we can, in fact, make a difference. And when you're able to kind of present that story to people who have the means to actually do something special, it's a win-win, and I think that we'll be spending our time doing that as often as we can.
Mm-hmm. The two of you have been truly extraordinary leaders, and you have excelled in the academic part of the job, the research, the engagement, the athletics, the fundraising, the philanthropy, the governmental relations. Here in the audience today, we have other wonderful leaders, and even some individuals that don't know today that they will be called to serve. What advice, now that you have been retired, what piece of advice would you like to share with them as we are about to conclude our panel tonight?
I'll start. I mean, there's a lot we could say, but the need for leaders now is as large, as great as it's ever been. That's number one. Number two, there may be things that you see that may dissuade you from saying, oh, I want to be a dean or a department chair or a vice president or another position, but I would urge you to at least investigate the position. That's how I took on those roles, was to at least explore them, even though I wasn't sure that I wanted them. But the need is there. The mission of these organizations, universities, the lives indeed that we touch through these education and society, broadly speaking, is just profound. So I would encourage, even if you are already in a position, encourage others in your organization that you see may have an inclination and ability to move into leadership positions. It's number one, it's important. There's a lot of joy, and there's always been challenges. I remember when I was at Purdue, the department had been founded, I think it was in 1888, and I was reading in a yearbook from 1890 something, and back then they had the department chairs would actually write a statement in the yearbook about their department. And I was reading the electrical engineering department chair's statement from the 1890s. This was 100 years later. He had the same problems I was having, just identical. It could have been me that wrote those. So set aside the problems, focus on the joy and the purpose and the real meaning to the positions. And I would encourage those in the audience, you may already be in the position, but you have the ability to influence others. Yeah.
What about for you? Could I pose the question to you? I mean, you've had this transition just recently, but looking Beck, what advice would you give?
I would say always say yes. I think the value of our institutions is focused on access and service, right? So when people approach you, you're called to serve. Put it in that perspective, right? What can you do for your university? What can you do for this other place? Even if you don't think at the time that there's anything you can do. For example, when I was first approached to serve Montana State, that was the last thing that I was thinking about. Have you told me 20 years ago that I was going to end up serving as a university president in Montana? I would have looked at you with very puzzled eyes.
Is that near Puerto Rico?
I was sharing this afternoon, you know, when I was serving as interim president at New Mexico State, and I found a second home there. I was at ease. And then when this president decided to leave 8 months into our 5-year commitment, I was serving in that office, and there was a red phone. Remember the red phone in Batman? The commissioner used to call there. And then one good day, the phone rings, and it's this headhunter. And he says, we would like to have a conversation with you about Montana State. And I said, I know it's a wonderful university. I have been tracking it. We have it among our peer institutions, but I hate moving. And I hung up the phone. And then a month later, he called again. And he was like, congratulations, you have now been nominated for the presidency of Montana State. And what I thought was, I mean, growing up in Puerto Rico, 98% Latino, then serving New Mexico State, which was about half of that, 48% Latino. I wonder, I said, what's the Latino population in Montana?
Is it lower than that?
2%. So I wrote back and I said, thank you very much. I don't think this is a good fit for me at this moment. And guess what happened? The phone rang again. He called me again. Now I was a little bit exasperated. And I was like, listen, I have never been to Montana. I don't look like, I don't sound like anybody in Montana. And I said, I lowered my head on the desk and said, what do you see in me that I'm not seeing? And he said, what we see in you is your passion for land-grant universities, your love for underrepresented minorities, and we're looking for someone with a lot of energy. Well, on that note, so it cannot be about you. That would be my advice. If you're approached to serve, say yes, because things will sort out. You will find a way. Communicate, and surround yourself with good people. And then it's a beautiful thing to serve as a university president. Back to you, Michael.
Great. You know, I was thinking, one of our UC alums, Arthur Ashe, tennis player, a great tennis player, had a little quote he said, which was, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And I think that applies to lots in life. And when you're in a position to take a step forward, that's kind of where you are, using whatever brought you to that day, doing what you can very well can be a position of leadership. I think that they'll feel right when it's the right thing to do and feel not right when it's not. But I think that just kind of be prepared to take those steps forward in life as they present themselves. And I think that that pathway kind of opens itself and creates itself for you.
Yeah. Michael and Kent, you have been so generous with your time. First of all, when I called these wonderful individuals last summer and I asked them, would you join me on this panel? The two of them immediately said yes. Actually, Anna Marie Krause also said yes. She had some personal situations that she had to tend to, and that's why she was not able to join us. But I do recognize and I honor you have been retired. You didn't have an obligation to say yes to this panel tonight. So before we part, and knowing that there are 250 universities that are part of APLU, anything that you would like to share with them? What gives you hope? Which was the last question that we asked in our video. What gives you hope about the wonderful universities represented in this room?
It's the people of the institutions, in addition to just the understanding, knowledge that our institutions are going to endure. The people, you all in this audience, the students that are back on your campus, and obviously the faculty and the other employees. They're just spectacular. They're fabulous. And no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the economy is, the challenges we face, we are part of something incredibly special in the difference that we're making in the world, us as a collective group, and those that for whom we're serving as leaders. So it's the institution and the people of the institution that just gives me not just hope, but confidence and optimism that we are going to thrive, every one of these organizations, and just make a difference that will even be greater in the future than it's been in the past. Yeah.
I would agree, honestly, verbatim, Kent. It really is the people. APLU is a great group of people to work with. The mission, the values, the impact of the institutions that are represented in this room. It's just really touching. So great. That's extremely important. When you said you called and said, that we had our conversation, then I'd say two things that you said. One, it's the people, but really the people that I was thinking of then were Anna Marie and Kent and you, all of whom I'd worked with before. And so this was a great chance to do something with people I knew and had worked with before. And then something else you said that I would agree with is that, I'll be candid, whatever you asked me to do, I would have said yes. But I would have done that because you asked me. And I think that the privilege we have of having colleagues and friends like that who we can work with to help, that's it was actually an opportunity. Looking forward to seeing you actually, and being able to connect with friends and to be here with this group of people. So it really was a privilege and a pleasure, and something I've been looking forward to. So thank you for the invitation.
Michael and Kent, I hope you understand higher education in America and our country and the world are better because of your service. Let's just join them and give them a very warm round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers and panelists. Please join us at the welcoming reception in Grand Ballroom Salons A through D.